Hey guys, I'm Joe, and today I'm here to talk about Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, the latest Star Wars video game brought to us by EA. It took me a while to get my hands on Jedi Fallen Order. I got it for Christmas, and I wanted to take my time playing it. I know everybody likes to finish games in one sitting. Well, I'm not one of those people. Same thing with television shows, and even with a movie, I like to breathe and think about it and process it and reflect on it. I am going to talk about certain details that happen in the story, so if you don't want to know anything, there will be spoilers in this video. Those of you who are new to my channel, Star Wars means the world to me, besides Spider-Man and maybe Batman or Marvel in general, or film in general. But Star Wars has been very personal to me ever since I was 6 years old. Outside of the movies, the Star Wars video games have mostly been really fun and really exciting. The Rogue Squadron games, Jedi Outcast, Bounty Hunter, Battlefront 1 and 2, the originals at least, and even the Clone Wars video game, not the one based on the TV series, the one that's based on Episode 2. I haven't played the Old Republic games. One day I will try to rectify that, but Star Wars video games, just like the movies, they're a big deal for me. However, ever since LucasArts shut down, the Star Wars video games that have come out up until now haven't really made a good impression on me. The first Battlefront was a huge disappointment. The second Battlefront was a slight improvement over the last one, but it basically had the same problems that the first one had. The gameplay, yeah, I think enough has been said by now. And then when I found out Jedi Fallen Order was coming out, having been disappointed by the last two games, I was very, indifferent to it. I didn't really care. Although I was holding out hope that maybe EA had learned their lesson. And based on the reviews I was hearing, I thought, okay, let's see what they do. As soon as I started playing it, all my doubts and worries went away. This might be the best Star Wars game that I have played in years. Just like with a lot of games that are happening today, where you have an interesting story and characters, this game is right up there with them, because this was a really investing game, and in some ways emotionally impactful, that really caught me off guard. It tells the story of a young man named Cal Kestis, who is a former Jedi apprentice. It's 5 years after the events of Order 66, the Jedi are all but extinct, and he's being hunted by an Inquisitor, known as the Second Sister, acting on orders from the Empire. And he runs into an older, wiser woman named Seer, and her sidekick Grease, who's a sarcastic dude who's unsure about allowing Cal onto their ship. And they embark on an adventure in a way to restore the Jedi Order by finding certain holocrons, pieces of a map that show you where exactly the Force-sensitive people are out in the galaxy. And as the story goes on, it gets really deep and really dark. Let's talk about the gameplay first. The gameplay, I would say, is a pretty solid gameplay. It admits some of the glitches and problems that it has. It has a flair of the Uncharted series, which if you play the Uncharted games, it has that good sense of scope or adventure where you slide down certain things, you get to climb up walls, and you get to swing on ropes from one area to the next. And like Uncharted, you have to find these certain MacGuffins or objects that lead you to this mystical place. And there's also these meditation points that you get to go to where you can rest and regenerate your health. And you also get to unlock certain Force abilities as you earn points by killing your enemies. Only downside though, it got on my nerves after a while, if I'm being honest. Whenever you regenerated your health, the enemies that you killed would respawn. Although, from BD1, you do get to use medical canisters. And you fight all sorts of enemies like the Stormtroopers, and also certain Imperial troopers that I guess that are part of the Inquisitor team. And you also get to fight monster and alien creatures, which there are some spider-like creatures that show up in here, and I know it's ironic because I'm a Spider-Man fan, but I just don't like spiders. And whenever one of those things showed up, I was in the fetal position for about 40 seconds. Oh my god. Outside of those spider things, whenever another creature showed up, it was one of those moments that just made me want to rage quit and turn off the game and be like, alright, I gotta take a break for a bit. This is too much. And I've had this experience before with video games in the past. Whenever I take out a certain group of enemies, I go, okay, that's it. But then another one shows up. And just like with this game, my reaction is, oh, come on! It's not a negative against the game or any of the other games that I played. It just gets annoying after a while. And I'm nitpicking here, but whenever you have to climb edges, like on the vines along these cliff walls, you have to push L2 in order to grasp it. It's not like Uncharted where you automatically latch onto this one part of the edge. It seems like the AI is just like, oh, I thought you wanted to drive to your death. Well, all right, next time, push L2 and then you'll grab onto it. I didn't have a problem with that mostly, but it was just a little frustrating. And sometimes when you slide and you jump onto something, sometimes Cal would go off to the left or to the right, or he would just come up short of the ledge because the gameplay is just like, yeah, kind of, and it's not always really fluid and focused. And then there's boss fights that you gotta take part in, like the Second Sister, who you fight twice in the game, and then you fight the Ninth Sister, who's a little bit more lethal, although I don't know if she's worse or less dangerous than the second sister is in the final boss battle. Either way, that ninth sister got on my nerves. As far as the story goes, I think that this is one of the best Star Wars stories that we've ever seen. Cal is a very interesting character, and I found myself sympathizing with him a great deal. Cere is probably one of the most fascinating Star Wars characters that I've ever seen. She has this traumatic past where she used to be a Jedi, but then she cut herself off from the Force after certain things happened. And whenever you hear that somebody used to be a Jedi, it makes you go, did they turn? Or did something happen that just made him walk away from everything? But then as the story goes on, you learn that the second sister, whose real name is Trilla, used to be Cere's apprentice. She was forced to abandon Trilla during Order 66, and when she was captured by the Empire, Trilla showed up to her, turned to the dark side. Feeling bad for her failures, she lashed out, killing nearly everybody else in the room, and almost killed Trilla. She was seduced by the dark side as a result of seeing her failure right in front of her, and because of that, she cut herself off from the Force. As far as Cal's concerned, he used to be a Jedi trainee, and the game has a really interesting way of exploring his backstory. Whenever you're in certain situations where you can't get past a certain area or a certain obstacle in front of you, the game flashes back to his past, where he goes through a similar situation being trained by his master, and then once you learn that ability, it cuts back to the present day, and you're able to use that power. Kind of like Batman Begins, where you have the past and the present working in conjunction with each other, and allowing us to completely understand why the main character is the way he is. And I had no idea who this guy was before I played this game. I thought that he was just going to be a Force user who had a lot of potential for being a Jedi, kind of like Luke and Rey, or even Anakin. So as the game goes on, and you unlock certain powers, it makes you go, oh, whoa. He's a lot more powerful than I realized. And we see Order 66 happen where he was trained at, and his former master gets killed by a bunch of clone troopers. It's one of the most heartbreaking scenes that I've ever seen in a video game. Then you have Grease, who's basically the Han Solo of this story, but he's a lot more laid back than I expected him to be. Reminded me of that one character from Solo who was played by Jon Favreau with the multiple arms. That's pretty obvious why he reminded me of that, but he was a lot more laid back than I realized, and a very likable addition to the story. And there's this like weird mystical cult on this one planet. I forget what the name of that planet is, but you have to fight against this former Jedi who succumbed to the dark side. It was a little weird. And some of the creatures actually reminded me of Darth Maul, which I think they might be the same species as Darth Maul. Any hardcore Star Wars fans out there, let me know in the comments, because when it comes to the broader universe, I'm out of my element. But the one character I can't remember her name. She ends up helping Cal and the rest of the gang. And they show up to this one planet at this underwater Imperial base to find the remaining holocron. Cal ends up fighting Trilla and defeats her. Then Cere shows up with the lightsaber, having accepted the Force inside of her again. Apologizes to Trilla for her failure, just when Trilla says, I carried so much hate for you. Maybe she's gonna join them? But then I have to say though, I knew that Darth Vader was going to be in the game. Whenever I would see search results or recommended videos on YouTube, they would show Darth Vader in the thumbnail. It said Jedi Fallen Order, and I thought, oh, so he's in the game. After a while, it was pretty hard to avoid, but still, when he showed up, I lost my mind. Here's a little reenactment for you. Oh. I was really worried that this was going to be another boss battle, but I'm really actually surprised and very pleased to see that they didn't make you fight Darth Vader. Well, they did for a little bit, but then he gets you by a chokehold, and then you have to run away from him. That's a good way of respecting the universe, because if Cal bested Darth Vader in a fight, and this is a couple years after Darth Vader rose, it would be really weird if they had him own Darth Vader in a fight, because Darth Vader is extremely powerful, and I don't think it just would have been too much. And the climax ends with Cere almost succumbing to the dark side to defeat Vader, and Vader goes, yes, so much darkness in her. I can feel it inside of her. But Cal says, no, Cere, you still have a choice. And she decides to use a force field to protect them from Vader, and Cal and Cere manage to get away. And they decide to not use the holocron and leave it up to the will of the Force to decide whether or not these Force-sensitive people should rise up to the challenge. Oh, and also, Saw Gerrera shows up in this game, voiced by Forrest Whitaker. And it does add a little bit to the character of Saw Gerrera. I know he shows up in the Clone Wars or Rebels. You guys know I wasn't really a fan of the character in Rogue One. This game adds a little bit more to him and makes him somewhat more understandable looking back on Rogue One. Oh yeah, and a couple other negatives I have with it is sometimes the graphics would take a little while to load. Whenever you reach certain areas, clothing would take like about 3 seconds to render. And the Wookiees, when you're on Kashyyyk, they could have used a bit of polishing. Not bad looking. On my end, they looked a little off. Overall though, Jedi Fallen Order, I have to say, is probably the best Star Wars game that I've played in years. Great story, great characters, really fun gameplay amidst some of the issues that I had with it. And if they make a sequel to this, I would not be opposed to it. EA, if you're considering a sequel, I'm there. I'm all in. Those are my thoughts on Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. What were your thoughts on the game? Did you love it, like it, think it's alright, or do you hate it? Whatever the case is, comment below and tell me your thoughts. I'll see you all very soon, and may the Force be with you.